So last time when I did this, I did the East a couple days ago, and I kind of went through this list here that I have of all the off-season moves, and I have this doc here that's going to have all the teams. So I'm going to do more of the same thing this time, kind of running through the teams. So I guess we'll start. I went in alphabetical order. That's just because that's how the document worked, the thing online. So I actually kind of want to start here with Dallas because I was texting one of my friends the other day about how excited I was for Dallas. So I ended last video talking about the Philly trade with Dallas on draft night and how it was one of the best swaps I think I've ever seen, like in my lifetime as a fan of the league, with the Richardson Curry swap. Because Philly, as I said, needed shooting, and Dallas. So when you go back to that Clipper series with Dallas, you kind of had that crunch time five for Dallas of some, switch out Finney Smith, Hardaway, whatever you want, and then so Luca, Hardaway, Curry, Porzingis, and then Kleber, or maybe they went small and they went Luca, Finney Smith, etc., Hardaway, etc., Porzingis, whatever. But now Richardson, because on those, when the Clippers would run that little, sometimes they'd run some flare action, sometimes they'd run some pick and roll with Harold Luel, and a lot of times when Kawhi, they would just have Paul George come set Kawhi ball screen. And when that would happen, you would have Seth Curry switching on to Kawhi Leonard, and he just absolutely demolished him. But now you have a guy in Richardson who can play well enough on offense, and he can switch onto those bigger wings that the contending teams have. And the other thing that I said about Dallas, not just that they got Richardson, which was like a huge win for them, but they're huge on the wing. Luka 6'7", Richardson 6'5", 6'6", Hardaway and Finney Smith are 6'6". Josh Green is 6'6". So, Kleber 6'10", Powell 6'11", Porzingis is 7'1", 7'3". So all these guys they're just a big team. Not so much big in the front court like with bigs, but they're a really big team, and they can get really physical with wings. And you guys know how I felt about the Tyrell Terry draft. I just really like what this team is doing, and I love the direction Dallas is going. Look, don't be surprised if Dallas ends up getting a top 4 seed in the West. Like, if I had to predict right now, like as my sleeper team, like Dallas is right there. So I love what they did, everything they did. If I could give them a grade, I'd give them an A+. I said the other day, Denver, if we're going to move on here to Denver, so what Denver did was they draft Zeke, RJ Hampton, etc. And they all right, so they lose Jeremy Grant, who wanted $60 million. A good riddance to you. They lose Torrey Craig. Torrey Craig was a big one because that's a guy, like, as I said with Richardson, that can switch onto those pretty talented wings. They also let Plumlee go, who was just reprehensibly bad. Both those two guys went to Detroit for a fortune. So I guess Detroit, it's in Detroit's hands now. But Denver, so I think what Denver's doing here is they're saying, okay, look, we're not going to be able to compete with the Lakers this year. The Lakers are just they're going to be too much for us. We don't really have the bodies and the talent to compete with them. So what I think they're going to do is they're going to roll with Murray and Jokic, and they're basically going to say, okay, we're going to expand and unload on Michael Porter Jr. here. We're going to give him a lot of playing time. He's going to be crunch time rotation. And we're still going to be really good, but we're just going to try to unlock that guy. We're going to get him to buy in more on defense. If you watched him on defense, you were quite concerned, as I was, if you're a Nugget fan in the bubble. But Denver, look, they're going to compete again. They're going to be one of the 3, 4, 5 best teams in the West. And they're for them, the key is Michael Porter Jr. How much of a level does that guy go up? You know how good Jokic is going to be. Murray, we saw Bubble Murray. And it's all about Porter Jr. if he can lock up on defense. And he should be able to. I mean, he's got the size. So it's about Michael Porter Jr. and unlocking that guy. The Warriors, look, if you're a basketball fan, okay, you genuinely feel bad for Klay Thompson. Like, is there anybody who doesn't like this guy? Like, this poor guy can't catch a fucking break, man. I genuinely feel bad. And isn't it weird how, like, so with Klay, everybody expects him to take Wiseman in the draft. They take Klay. With Klay, they're a team that's competing for the title. They're one of the 4 best teams in the West. And now it seems like without Klay, they're falling, like, potentially out of a playoff spot. That just shows you, like, how big Klay is for them. So now it's Curry, Wiggins, Oubre, Draymond Green, Wiseman. You have Pascal. Or wait, did he get traded? He might have got traded. But anyway, so they lose. They get Brad Wanamaker. Oh my God. So they draft Mannion and Wiseman. So I look, we know what their team's going to be. Their crunch time 5 is quite terrifying. Wiggins is in there and Oubre's in there. That gives me a little tingle in my toes there. So, it's going to be fine. So the Warriors, Curry could have an MVP season. It could be all fine. So, you just never know. Houston, let's talk about Houston for a second. Okay. Houston, I love this team. Now, are they going to win the West? No. But how fun is this team? Russ Harden, Eric Gordon, Christian Wood, and Boogie Cousins. PJ Tucker, Ben McLemore, Sterling Brown off the bench. They just signed somebody else today. Who was it? I'm blanking. They signed somebody else today, though, on a pretty decent contract. So you have Russ and Harden, who I think they're both, it's granted that they're probably both going to start on the Rockets this year, regardless of all the trade rumors. Eric Gordon, solid. Christian Wood is like one of my top 3 favorite free agents. That guy is so underrated. He can do so much with the ball. And if we get a decent Boogie season, like a healthy, decent Boogie season, like this team is super talented. Can they play together? Who the hell knows? We know how much, Harden needs the ball in his hands. But they're going to be a fun, team to watch on the stream every night. They're going to be a team you want to watch constantly. I mean, I'm going to watch that team a lot. So, Houston, I really like the Christian Wood signing. I think they're really trying to keep Harden, and that's as good as you can get with getting the talent around those guys. The Clippers, I'm going to do the Clippers last. I'm not ready for that yet. I'm not deep enough into this glass of scotch to do the Clippers yet. Lakers, I'll do the Lakers and Clippers last. So Grizzlies, I told you I made a video about the draft grades overall, and I loved what Memphis did. So Memphis adds Desmond Bane, Xavier Tillman, Killian Tilly with the draft, and Jalil Tripp, which is good. He's Defensive Player of the Year in his conference. They also add Mario Hezonja, who he's the worst player in the league, I think. But they get rid of Josh Jackson, good. They get rid of Jonte Porter, good. So their team right now, if we take a look here at their depth chart. So you have Morant, Dylan Brooks, Kyle Anderson, Jaren Jackson, and Valanciunas. It's more the same. But you have Tyus Jones off the bench, who's, he's one of the best backups in the league. DeAnthony Melton, who we like. Tillman is going to play right away. Clark, we know what he can do. Allen, Winslow, Tilly. So Tilly, dude, look, if this guy stays healthy, this guy is like Bertans, but bigger and kind of a better defensive rebounder. So I just love what the Grizzlies did. Look, you have 2 bright young stars in Morant and Jared Jackson Jr. Like, you got to build around those guys. And like Tillman and Brandon Clark and Killian Tilly, like those guys know how to fill their roles. Like Brandon Clark, that guy's awesome. And Tillman, you talk about a guy who fills his role properly. Go watch his Michigan State highlights. Actually, don't even watch the highlights. Watch the games. If you watch the games, you see how much of an impact this guy has. So look, I really love what Memphis did. They're going to try to be in the playoffs again. And if you take a look at the West, most of the teams in the West are competing for playoff spots, right? So let's just go down the list that I've done so far. So Dallas, Denver, Golden State, Houston, Clippers, Lakers, Grizzlies, Wolves, Pelicans. All those teams I'm mentioning now are all competing for playoff spots. They're in, like, let's win. Phoenix, Portland, Utah, and I guess San Antonio if they hold on to Aldridge and DeRozan. So that's like 95% of the teams in the Western Conference are competing for the playoff spot. The only teams that aren't are Oklahoma City and Sacramento and probably San Antonio. I mean, if you count San Antonio. So all these teams are going to be competing for playoff spots. So that's going to be kind of fun to watch. So now if I go, let's talk about Minnesota for a second. So Minnesota, they draft Edwards and Ballmaro and Jaden McDaniels, who that guy's a flyer, but he could potentially be really good. They get Rubio back, so it'll be Rubio, something along the lines of Rubio, Russell, Edwards, some sort of Layman Hernan Gomez combo, and Cat. That's a fine 5. I don't think it's enough to go to the playoffs. I'm a huge Derek Culver guy. Okogie's getting better if he could just knock down those corner threes. Malik Beasley has he's I guess abusive guy, so I don't know how long he's going to stick around. Actually, he just got paid, so obviously Minnesota doesn't give a fuck what he does. So that's what Minnesota's doing. They're still going to suck. Look, Cat and Russell are children. They're immature. And Edwards, he's going to be in that culture, and it could just go south for them very quickly. So don't count on them being a playoff team or anything like that. Cat is obviously a good fantasy option, but don't count on that too much. New Orleans is super interesting. So they get Stan Van Gundy, who's going to kick these guys in the ass, and he's going to make them play defense. They draft Kyra Lewis, who I am a huge fan of. Kyra Lewis loves to run up and down the floor. They trade for Eric Bledsoe and Steven Adams. Look, and you guys know I'm an Eric Bledsoe, I am always reprehending, that guy. So he is a choker in the playoffs. But for now, I mean, he's a decent player. He's still good. So you have Lonzo, Bledsoe, Ingram, Zion, and Adams. That's a good five. All right. If Ingram keeps up what he's doing, if Zion can stay on the floor, and Lonzo doesn't have a travesty mental breakdown in the bubble again, this is a good five. Josh Hart fucking sucks. Jackson Hayes is just freakish athletic. Nickeil Alexander-Walker needs to find the floor. It's not a matter of if we should get that guy in the game. That guy needs to play. Kyra Lewis needs to play. JJ Redick's going to play. And so they're a fun team. They're also a League Pass, stream team that you're probably going to want to watch. Let's get to the team who's going to have a top 3 draft pick and is just going to be laughable to watch. The Oklahoma City Thunder. They lose their entire team. Let's go over everything they've lost. They lose Chris Paul, Schroeder, Ferguson, Steven Adams, Gallinari, Noel. That's their whole fucking team. And look at all the additions they get. So they get Al Horford. Yay, that's a good contract to have. They draft Pokashevsky, which you guys watched my first video. You know how I felt about that. Al Horford, Ariza, Justin Jackson, George Hill. I'm going to stop before I throw up. So what they have here, and a starting 5 potentially of SGA, love SGA, Dort, Diallo, Baisley, Horford. That's their starting 5. George Hill's coming off the bench, Ariza, Frank Jackson. This team's going to suck. They're going to be so fucking bad. They're going to have a top 3 pick. You better hope they get... anybody, honestly, anybody in that top 7 in the draft is good for them. So they're going to be very bad. They're one of the only teams in the West who's not competing at this point. So yeah, they're just, I don't even know what to say about them. They're so super bad. Phoenix, they get Booker, some help with CP3. They're 5. I love their 5. This is one of my favorite starting 5s in the league. Chris Paul, Devin Booker, Bridges, Mikal Bridges, that guy, he's going to pop soon. It's got to come. It's got to come because this guy, he's a special 3-and-D player. Jay Crowder, who was just in the finals and knows his role, and DeAndre Ayton, who's coming along. You have Cam Johnson off the bench, Saric, Javon Carter, who is just a defensive monster, and Jalen Smith, who, look, maybe that guy can do a little something. Was it a reach to take him at 10? Probably. Should they have probably taken Halliburton? Probably. But look, I mean, I'm not going to sit here and, reprimand them for what they were doing. They did what they had to do to win now. And look, this team, arguably, if their 5 plays a decent amount of minutes, this team could be a 5 or a 6. Like, don't be surprised if you see this team jump. We saw what they did in the bubble. So I'm not going to freak out, but I love their starting 5. It's a lot of fun. Can we stop sucking off the general manager of the Portland Trailblazers, please? Can we stop doing that? We got on our knees and just started kissing this guy's toes. All right, so they add Covington, who that's the best addition for them. They add Covington, who I love. But they add Enes Kanter. And as a Celtics fan, I'll tell you first fucking hand that Enes Kanter is not something to throw a parade about, okay? Anthony Simons, you guys know I'm super high on Anthony Simons. That dude's got to get more playing time. Trent, who came out in the bubble. Hood, who that guy gets bad breaks. And Giles was supposed to be the best player we've seen since Kevin Garnett at that position, but obviously it's injuries. So Portland, they're okay, right? They're okay. They're fine. They could compete for that 5 spot. But Lillard and McCollum, look, they're 1-2 in the league in minutes played. So you have to get those guys some breathing room at some point. So look, if you're not going to play Simons more, if you're not going to play... Their crunch time, I expect, is going to be Lillard, McCollum, Trent, Covington, Nurkic. That's what I expect their crunch time to be. Collins, he's a little on-off, but he starts for them, which is fine. Carmelo... Actually, I'm sorry. Carmelo's going to demand crunch time minutes, which he was fine in the bubble, but... Are we really on the Carmelo still really good hype train? Are we still on that? You guys watch this guy play? Seriously, I don't know how much longer this guy has. But look, he made a couple big threes in the bubble, et cetera, et cetera. He plays 0 defense. Whatever. So Covington is the anti-Melo. Maybe that's why they got him. But Portland, nothing to write home about. Sacramento, they win, they get Halliburton in the draft. You win if you get Halliburton at 12 in the draft. At 12, look, a lot of people are like, I don't see what you see in Halliburton. You're gonna, okay? He's the most NBA-ready player. He's gonna play right away. And look, by Leacha, Whiteside is terrifying. Don't play that guy more than 5 minutes because he's just a travesty. But the Kings are fine. They're gonna compete. They're gonna want to try to win, but maybe they'll hang back and get a draft pick. Bagley should be unlocked this year if he stays healthy. The Spurs are probably going to end up trading some sort of thing with DeRozan and Aldridge at the deadline. But they draft Vassell, Trey Jones, guys who are typical Spurs guys. I hope, you got to trade Aldridge and DeRozan because look at all these young guys they have. You have Vassell, Trey Jones, Keldon Johnson, Lonnie Walker. Pirtle's still pretty young. So, and I love DeJounte Murray, Derek White. So you have to play those guys. So DeRozan and Aldridge, those guys want to be on winning teams. You should trade them to winning teams. This isn't complicated, people. Like, let's get Aldridge on the Warriors. Okay, can we do that? Can we get Aldridge to the Warriors, please? So yeah, that's where I'm at with them. They're not going to be competitive either in the West, which is hard to doubt Pop. But I did it last year and they didn't make the playoffs. So, and then Utah. Before what time am I at here? I want to get to the Lakers Clippers thing quickly. So Utah, they didn't really do anything. They added my two sleepers in the draft, Udoka Azubuike, Elijah Hughes, which I love those guys. And they had Derek Favors. That's significant to their team. So yeah, I love Derek Favors. So Favors probably going to start over Royce here. But Conley, Mitchell, Bojan Bogdanovic, who he was hurt unfortunately for their bubble time, and Favors, and then Gobert. So that's a good five. And their guys off the bench are decent. They're going to be pretty much the same team, unless they can unlock Udoka and Elijah Hughes, which I kind of doubt. All right, so before I wrap up this video, I want to get into the Clippers and the Lakers. I'll start with the Clippers. So I will give you the backstory to this. I have to have a sip before. All right, so I was driving home from school when I was driving, and I have the Twitter notifications from Shams and Woj, and I'm driving, and I look up and I see Clippers. I just see Clippers, in the heading of the tweet. So I kind of am trying to check my phone as I'm driving on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, and I see that Marcus Morris had signed with the Clippers for 4 years for $64 million, and I almost drove into oncoming traffic when I read that. I literally almost drove into oncoming traffic. I thought my heart began to come out of my chest, and it just sunk into all the way down to my stomach. When I read that, I wanted an explanation from Steve Ballmer right away. I just needed an explanation, and I don't know what the fuck they're doing. So they let Harrell walk, which is fine. That's actually fine because Harrell was indefensibly bad in the bubble. Seriously, he was really, really bad. So now they get rid of Shamet for Kennard. Is that a good move? I don't think so, because Shamet, as I said last time, he's elite coming off curls. But you have now your team, pretty much your depth chart is Pat Bev, Paul George, Kawhi, Marcus Morris, and Ibaka. Also, Ibaka is an upgrade from Montrezl Harrell. And if you don't think that's the case, you did not watch any basketball in the bubble. Ibaka arguably didn't get more playing time. He should have got more playing time in that Celtics series. He was knocking down threes like crazy. He was defending the rim. He's still a very effective player, and I think that's the perfect addition for them. So excellent job with the Ibaka signing. But if Marcus Morris is in your starting lineup, I just don't know what the fuck to say to you. Like, what the fuck are you doing? Marcus, I'll give you an example. Jay Crowder, excellent signing for the Phoenix Suns, got 3 years for $30 million, or 4 for 4, or whatever it was. 3 for 30. I think it was 3 for 30. So Jay Crowder is better and was better than Marcus Morris. And Marcus Morris gets 4 for 64. I swear to God. Who's doing these deals? So Marcus Morris is a starter in the NBA on a team that's not the New York Knicks. So that's a problem. That's a little concerning to me. Lou Will wants out. He was upset about the Harrell thing, and he's just a little bitch as it is. Look, when this Clipper thing came out, that Pat Bev, Lou Will, and Harrell were all pissed about Kawhi and Paul George getting the star treatment. Paul George, I understand. But Kawhi is the best player in the league last year and in the playoffs. He had one of the best playoff runs we've ever seen before in 2019. Kawhi, he's earned it, quite frankly. He's won 2 finals MVPs on 2 different teams. He's earned it. The ability to be the best player on the team and walk as the best player on the team. Now, him being late because he lived in San Diego for flights, that's unacceptable. He should not be doing that. And that would piss me off too, quite frankly. But it all comes back to, this team chemistry thing with them. And I picked them to win the title. And if I had known this was a story, I wouldn't have done that. Because if I had known they were having chemistry issues with Kawhi and Paul George, I fucking wouldn't have picked them. And you can see that in the bubble. Like, Kawhi was taking shots and 3 people because no one else wanted to touch the ball. Did you watch Marcus Morris in games 5, 6, and 7? That guy's making $64 million over the next 4 years, and that guy was scared shitless to touch the ball in game 7. So why am I paying this guy? Why am I paying this guy? So I don't know. But so the Clippers just you guys really, you're still going to be one of the 2 best teams in the West. It's you and the Lakers because you have Kawhi Leonard. But I mean, come on, be better than this. They probably still have a move to make, maybe at the deadline or something, but we'll see. We never know. But and the Lakers win the offseason. Look, they're gonna repeat. They got better. Schroeder is an upgrade from Rondo. Wes Matthews is an upgrade from Danny Green. You re-sign Markieff Morris. So Markieff Morris gets the vet minimum, but we're going to pay Marcus Morris $64 million. Someone, please, seriously, leave a comment if you can explain this to me, because this will be a national, it's a mystery to me. Someone needs to write a book about the mystery of Marcus Morris getting paid $64 million fucking dollars, because I simply do not understand. Harrell goes to the Lakers in a kind of, oh, fuck you to the Clippers. So maybe the Clippers will use that as fire. I don't know. Alex Caruso is going to be one of the best role players in the league. And Kyle Kuzma can go kick rocks because that guy fucking sucks. But and they get Marc Gasol, who's better than JaVale McGee and Dwight Howard combined. So yeah, so the Lakers got better. And they're going to win the title again. I already threw on it. You can get them at like plus 300, plus 290. So I suggest you do it. So this is a summary of the West. I love what the Lakers did. I love what Dallas did. I like what Houston did, and New Orleans will be fine, and Phoenix, they might have won the offseason other than the Lakers. So that's pretty much the West here. And if you please leave a comment if you understand the Marcus Morris fiasco, because I don't. So I might do some fantasy rankings. I am going to do a video about the standings, potential standings this season. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap up this video here. So follow us at Game Winning Turnover and Mouse in the House Podcast. Subscribe and follow on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere else. And subscribe to these YouTube channels. I will see everybody next time.